The Turkish Land Forces is the main branch of the Turkish Armed Forces responsible for land-based military operations. Significant events since the foundation of the army include combat in the Korean War and in the 1974 Turkish invasion of Cyprus, and acting as a NATO bulwark along Cold War frontiers through 1992. The army holds the preeminent place within the armed forces. It is customary for the Chief of the General Staff of the Republic of Turkey to have been the commander of the Turkish Land Forces prior to his appointment as Turkey's senior ranking officer. Alongside the other two armed services, the Turkish army has frequently intervened in Turkish politics, which has now been regulated to an extent with the reform of the National Security Council. In 2016, the International Institute for Strategic Studies estimated that the Turkish army had an established strength of approximately 664,049 active personnel. As of late 2016, reports suggest the Turkish army, along with the rest of the armed forces, have seen their personnel strengths increase to similar levels of the 2000. Factors contributing to this are further destabilization of Syria and Iraq due to ISIS and the Russian intervention in Syria, as well as the re-emergence of a PKK insurgency in Turkey's southeast. Towards the end of the 1980s, a restructuring and modernization process has been initiated by the Turkish Armed Forces, which still continues today. The final goal of Turkey is to produce indigenous military equipment and to become increasingly self-sufficient in terms of military technologies. At present, the primary main battle tanks of the Turkish army are the Leopard 2A4 and the M60T. There are also around 400 Leopard 1 and 750 M60 pattern, but the Turkish army retains a large number of older vehicles. More than 2,800 M48 patterns are still in service, upgraded with the 105mm M68 guns, though only around 1,300 of these are stored as reserve MBTs, while the rest are mostly transformed into other types of military vehicles or used as spare parts resources. Turkey plans to build a total of 1,000 new Atakar Altay MBTs, in 4 separate batches of 250 units, with the MIDAT Turkish National Tank Project. The tanks will be produced by the Turkish firm Atakar, and share some of the systems that are used in the K2 Black Panther main battle tank of South Korea, and much more. The United States Army is the largest branch of the United States Armed Forces and performs land-based military operations. It is one of the 7 uniformed services of the United States and is designated as the Army of the United States in the United States Constitution. As the oldest and most senior branch of the U.S. military in order of precedence, the modern U.S. Army has its roots in the Continental Army, which was formed to fight the American Revolutionary War before the United States of America was established as a country. After the Revolutionary War, the Congress of the Confederation created the United States Army on June 3, 1784 to replace the disbanded Continental Army. The United States Army considers itself descended from the Continental Army, and dates its institutional inception from the origin of that armed force in 1775. As a uniformed military service, the U.S. Army is part of the Department of the Army, which is one of the 3 military departments of the Department of Defense. The U.S. Army is headed by a civilian senior appointed civil servant, the Secretary of the Army, and by a Chief Military Officer, the Chief of Staff of the Army, who is also a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In the fiscal year 2017, the projected end strength for the regular Army was 460,000 soldiers. The Army National Guard had 335,000 soldiers and the United States Army Reserve had 195,000 soldiers. The combined component strength of the U.S. Army was 990,000 soldiers as a branch of the armed forces. The mission of the U.S. Army is to fight and win our nation's wars by providing prompt, sustained, land dominance across the full range of military operations in the spectrum of conflict, in support of combatant commanders. The branch participates in conflicts worldwide and is the major ground offensive and defensive force of the United States.